A very common complaint that I run into is, different leadership teams, different executives are disappointed with how quickly their teams can switch gears and start working with other teams or change the way that they work with other teams. So I want us to think about this problem in a very straightforward way. And if you remember my previous videos, I'll just give you a quick rewind on that. There's two things that help you keep, a leadership team that keeps teams moving quickly. And that's aligning them on people, process, product, and technology. Make sure they all go in the same way. And then the second one here is make sure that people inside of a group of teams have a common target instead of four disparate different targets, right? So I mean, that's the first thing, but really what we're talking about here is how do we make them change their interaction mode very quickly, right? So if we think about this, we have team cohesion. All of our teams inside of our group are nice and aligned, right? So people, process, product, and tech, everybody's got the same thing. They're all chasing the same goal. Now, team group A, with stream C and F, they start off doing, X as a service interaction. Later, next up, they change into this collaboration mode where they're working to better reshape that X as a service definition, bring it to the next level, and then they'll eventually, later go into a new way of working where they return to X as a service, right? So now they're returning to consuming, stream C, consuming stream F as a service. This happens at a certain speed and in, an environment where everyone's aligned and that, people, process, product, and tech is moving really fast and you have the same goal that you're after. You've created an environment to go now, next, later at a very fast speed, right? Instead of an organization where those things are in different directions, you can still do now, next, later, but you might be thinking about quarters instead of months or weeks or even days, right? So, and in the worst case, you'd think about that in terms of years, and I've seen that happen. But this is really the model you can have to think about how you can get those teams to change quickly. Now, we're in an interesting situation because that helps people who have, people, process, product, and tech and shared targets. But your organization gets too big for that to keep everyone aligned all the time on the same thing, right? You're going to end up with, another part of your organization where actually it makes a lot of sense for them to be going in an absolutely different direction, right? And they might have entirely different goals. So when we think about this here, we can have, this stream, offers a service to this stream. And the thing is, this happens later and then much later and then much, much later. So this will happen at a slower change, right? So, the speed of changing modes slows us down when crossing group boundaries due to social cohesion, mission, and alignment between them. So you want to get your teams to adapt faster at working with one another. I think that's the important thing here is remember from the previous two videos what we talked about, the change speed, you can influence that and how easy that is. You can adapt the environment to make that faster by keeping them aligned on, people, process, product, tech, and, shared target. Versus over here, you should expect the mode of slow. It might not always be slow, but the environment encourages slowness, right? So it's a slow boundary, right? Now we have two different groups of people, because teams are made of people and they happen to take care of capabilities, right? They take care of product and technology, but the product and technology is an artifact of what the people make. But the people changing the interaction modes, this happens at a slower speed just because they're in less frequent communication. They get less heads up, they get less communication. So when you try to encourage teams together, think very deeply about what these interactions should be, because you want to make sure that the boundary for, cross group, not just cross team collaboration, but actually cross group level collaboration encourages you to do that at a different cadence, right? So you don't need this to move at such a quick rate. This could be a deep piece of technology that is stable for years and years, like an operating system or, the roads, the concept of driving on a road. And then up here, you can have, a car manufacturer or, software. You could have an electric car, internal combustion engine, a bicycle. They're all capable of driving on a road. And if we actually need to change the concept of roads entirely, we should expect that to be a very long cycle, right? So that's okay in an environment where we know the reason for collaboration should be long-term stable, right? Because we don't want to change it so often. So think about that when you're thinking about how to align people, process, product, tech, and targets. That boundary that you end up creating between two groups of teams. And remember, the groups of teams are pulled together by shared targets and by a leadership team keeping them aligned. Those are some core forces that keep them pulled together. That change speed, if it's very long-term stable, unlikely to change for a long time, that's a good way to create that boundary, right? So it's a little bit of an indirect answer. How do you get your teams to adapt at working faster with other teams? Keep the teams together that need to work together and change their interactions together. And then, try to create as few boundaries as possible and very long-term stable boundaries between those groups.